The EU elections are coming up soon in about 2 months' time, and from what I can tell, it doesn't really seem that many people care. Typically, around 50% of people in the EU vote in these elections, and interestingly, Belgium has the highest turnout with around 90%. You might think it's because of its proximity to Brussels being in Belgium, but it might also be the fact that voting in Belgium is mandatory. And to be honest, when people think of wanting to make a change with their vote, to have their voice be heard, you usually think of national elections as being the most important and having the most impact on your life. That and maybe local elections. And while that may not be incorrect, that's not to say that EU elections aren't important, as they're just very distant and don't do anything. They actually do a lot. EU policy decisions have a lot of impact on your life, and you might not always notice them, but that's kind of the point. Anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk about. Rather, I've just registered to vote in the next EU elections, and this will be one of the few elections that I'll vote in. You see, I am what you might call European, Western European at least. I have 4 nationalities: German, British, Belgian, Irish, and I'll be honest, I didn't even know that I was Irish until a few days ago. Yes, I knew that I was eligible to be Irish, I just didn't realize I already was. Yet with all of my Europeanness and also nationalness of all of these different countries, it's incredible how none of these nationalities end up actually giving me any say into any of the decisions these countries make. I don't live in Germany, I don't live in Belgium or the UK or Ireland, and as a non-resident, these countries don't give me any form of political representation at all. No right to vote in any of the decisions that they make, even though I will certainly be influenced by at least some of them. Rather, I live in the Netherlands. You see, one of the arguments that is sometimes given for why you can't vote when living abroad is because you don't pay taxes in that country. So why would you get a say in how that country's money is spent when you don't contribute to it? So, okay, what happens when I'm now in a country where I do pay taxes? Do they now give me national representation? No, because I'm not Dutch. And why am I not Dutch if I'm such a collector of nationalities? Because it would be incredibly dumb for me to do so. The Netherlands doesn't always fully comprehend that foreigners exist, except for when they're actively recruiting them for their Pride and Joy ASML or blaming international students for the housing shortage, which means that, among other things, options for Dutch dual citizenship are very limited, and each exception in that law was probably reluctantly compromised on. If I were to become Dutch, and I definitely can, then I would have to get rid of all of my other nationalities. And while I am in a bit of a mess of not really knowing what nationality or identity I feel most attached to, I know that Dutch isn't one of them. But aside from just feelings, except for allowing me to vote in national elections here, there is no advantage of becoming Dutch, because a lot of my rights are already secured by me being an EU citizen or having lived here long enough. But the disadvantages mean that I'll severely limit my options, for now, but also definitely in the future, because changing my nationalities, revoking all of my other ones, is a lifelong decision with no easy way of undoing it, and only partially at that. To name just one example, a more extreme example, what if the Netherlands becomes xenophobic and decides to kick out all the foreigners? Something which isn't entirely off the table. In the last general election, far-right party PVV became the most voted for party, although that doesn't mean much yet, and in Germany, the far-right party AfD said that they wanted to kick out all of the foreigners, which is only about a quarter of the entire population. But what kind of time frame are we talking about here for which these developments might occur and might be a problem? Oh yeah, my entire lifetime. But ignoring that, there's simply just a good chance that I just won't live in the Netherlands for the rest of my life. I mean, there's nothing really keeping me here, and so, I might move. Anyway, back to EU elections. I've registered myself for these elections because EU elections and local elections are the only type of political representativeness I'll be getting anytime soon. Do I think it's a bit unfair that I don't get to vote in the national elections of the country I've lived in for most of my life, where they've made it technically possible, but in reality not really, and where in the future I will probably be paying my taxes? Yeah. The Netherlands does currently offer me a nice place to live and study, and I am very comfortable here, but who knows if that might change in the future. And as over the coming 10 or so years, for various different reasons, I'll have fewer and fewer things keeping me in this country, who knows where I'll be. I certainly thank you for your hospitality, which has been made easier by me speaking Dutch, but one day I might want to say goodbye. I'll catch you in the next one.